front page of the Standard newspaper, radical bill pushes for one-term president. There you have it, a 7 years president, prime minister, and 2 deputy prime ministers. What do you guys think?
To begin with, well, as I have read from the dailies, is that today the Budget and Appropriations Committee is going to exercise an audit over the proposed bill because it has a financial implication, and they have been empowered to do so by the Public Finance and Management Act, and therefore if through their recommendation they find that the bill is fit to be taken to the floor of Parliament, then it will begin being discussed as early as tomorrow. But taking us back, this is an issue that was hot on discussion from the times of Bomas of Kenya talks, whereby we were talking about a less powerful president and a more powerful prime minister who was supposed to be voted for by the parliament. That was meant to be a parliamentary system. But remember, after that is when at the collapse of the Bomas talks, we had the former Attorney General, who is the current Senator for Busia, made alterations on the Bomas talks and the Bomas recommendations, and he scrapped off the position of the Prime Minister, and he settled on an executive president, and also the provisions on the Senate were also scrapped off. Again, that was taken to the referendum in November 2005, and it was rejected by 58% of Kenyans. When we went back to the drawing board again, there was again the re-emergence of the talks, whereby the position of Prime Minister was again discussed, and this time there was the Naivasha talks, which the PNU faction of government was led by His Excellency the President, and the ODM faction was led by Senator James Orengo. And surprisingly, the ODM faction dropped the bid for a prime minister, and eventually they settled for an executive president who had all powers. Yeah, so that is where we are now. So we are back at it again, and I think it's a question of perhaps the drafter of the bill is looking at inclusivity, whereby we are not going to have the winner has it all kind of situation. But again, we must ask ourselves, is there going to be any change that is poised by this bill, or are we still going to maintain the status quo? Because to me, I feel that what is bedeviling this country is lack of quality leadership, not about representation. Because even when we had the Grand Coalition government, we still had issues of corruption, in fact, grand corruption in the land sector, in finance sector. There were so many corruption scandals, borrowing here and there. Our wage bill is already ballooning. On Monday, we were here talking about the Eurobond that was just borrowed, and we are supposed to pay it back in a span of 30 years. We don't know where that money is going to come from, and we are still going to go on another borrowing spree. And now we are adding more positions, which means more money is going to be channeled towards salaries.
All right. In layman's terms, what has Ali said?
Well, the long and short of it is that there's a proposal in Parliament that is going to be presented to Parliament for the creation of the office of the Prime Minister in this country. Now, which will also have a proposal for the scrapping of the office of the Deputy President in this country, as well as reconstitution of not only the process of electing senators, but also the number of senators. Now, just to maybe get into the nitty-gritty of everything, first and foremost, this Prime Minister is going to be an appointee of the President, and is supposed to be appointed, as an elected MP, is supposed to be appointed by the President within 7 days from the first sitting of Parliament. Now, that in itself is a problem, because ideally, if you're going to create an office of a Prime Minister, you want to enhance efficiency, for example. In essence, what he will be is just a mouthpiece of the President. So you've created another office in itself with 2 deputies, but they're going to be speaking on behalf of the President, because ideally, if he doesn't sing to the tune of the President and is a presidential appointee, then it means the President will still have recourse to change and put whoever he wants. Ideally, he'll be a stooge in office, you see. Now, that aside, this idea of MCAs being the ones to elect senators, and there being 2 senators, 1 woman and 1 man, again falls short of logic. the senators are supposed to provide oversight for MCAs. You don't choose who's going to police you for yourself. Ideally, that sets the ground for a lot of vested interests to come into play. Again, we'll end up having this kind of senators. They're going to be stooges because they'll be puppets for MCAs. If they can elect them, then they have the power to recall them at any time. So it will be a very inefficient office. There is a lot that falls short in this proposal. And like Alice has said, we can play around with the laws in this country. We can play around with the constitution in this country so much. But we still have not cured. Since early 2000s, we still have not cured the problem that ails this country, which is inefficient leaders.
So, Elliot, would you agree to what Alice and Kagiri are saying, or is there any good part in this whole bill?
There's something positive about the bill. If we looked at it in terms of the current state of affairs in our country, whereby if we feel inadequately represented as a country, or we do not feel like our tribe has already had someone who sits in on our own behalf, then this bill will allow that to take place, and that we're reducing the powers of the president and donating them to the prime minister, which means then that if an MP has made it into the parliament, and the MP is actually very conversant, very vocal, and a favorite to every member of the assembly, then they are able to take up the rightful place, and they are able to govern, having assumed more powers than the president, and therefore will reduce the whole hula baloo that we've seen before, whereby we have some members of parliament who get in parliament, they are elected, but they are not able to actually voice out, and they are not able to actually represent the nation as a whole, and so the whole people's representative will be well taken care of, and that's how I see it. And so with the new suggestion, yes, it looks very nice in terms of representation and our people and gender and ethnical balance. But in terms of our fiscal and monetary capacity as a country, we are not able to actually take care of it. And so we'll need to have, I think we need to prioritize what is more important today. And what is more important today is actually the necessary amendments to the electoral body in this country, the health crisis in the country. We have more urgent issues compared to who can represent us.
Other than the stories that are making headlines
yes.
today.